It's a street fight. Boom, that's the first thing to do. I follow up, bang, 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 dong, don't you ever do this.
Bas Rutten, the Dutch mixed martial artist, is one of the most iconic and dominant fighters in MMA history. With an impressive professional record of 28 wins and just 4 losses, Rutten made his name in the early days of MMA, competing in Pancrase and later becoming the UFC heavyweight champion. Throughout his career, Rutten showcased a unique and devastating fighting style with a particular focus on striking. His powerful punches, high kicks, and devastating knee strikes made him a formidable opponent for anyone in the cage. But what really set Rutten apart was his incredible fighting spirit and durability. Not only did he have an unparalleled ability to absorb punishment, but he also had a knack for coming back from the brink of defeat to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. In this video, we'll delve into the legendary career of Bas Rutten and examine how his incredible fighting style and unwavering determination earned him a place in the pantheon of MMA greats. Born in the Netherlands, Bas Rutten grew up with a passion for martial arts. He began practicing Taekwondo at the age of 12, but soon found his true calling in kickboxing. Rutten's professional career began in 1993 when he won his first fight in the Rings organization in Japan. Rutten's dominance in the kickboxing world earned him the attention of the Pancrase organization, where he made his debut in 1993. He quickly rose to the ranks, winning the King of Pancrase title and becoming one of the organization's most popular fighters. Throughout his career, Rutten's striking was his bread and butter, as he possessed devastating punching power and a wide variety of kicks. However, he was also a skilled grappler, with a solid ground game and a dangerous guillotine choke. In September 1993, Bas Rutten made his debut in Pancrase against Ryushi Yanagisawa, who weighed 45 pounds more than him. However, the match was over quickly as Rutten knocked out Yanagisawa with a combination of palm and knee strikes in just 48 seconds.
Right high kick with the right palm strike, bang, to the head.
The strike was so powerful that Yanagisawa had to be carried out of the ring and spent 2 days in the hospital. Rutten himself was afraid that Yanagisawa might have been seriously injured or even killed. The fight was a defining moment in Rutten's career, as it demonstrated his impressive striking ability and toughness in taking on a much larger opponent. You may be wondering why these fighters are striking with open palms instead of fists. Well, it's because they're competing under the rules of Pancrase, a Japanese mixed martial arts organization that was popular in the 1990s. In Pancrase, fighters are not allowed to strike with closed fists to the head, but they can use open-handed strikes, kicks, and submissions. If caught in a submission, that particular fighter can grab the ropes to force the fight back to the feet, but at the cost of 1 point. This unique rule set created a style of fighting that combined elements of professional wrestling and traditional martial arts. Now that you have some context, let's dive into Bas's next fight against a more experienced opponent, Takaku Fuke. In his second match in Pancrase, Bas Rutten faced off against the more experienced Takaku Fuke. While Rutten was known for his striking ability, the fight exposed a weakness in his game, his lack of ground fighting experience. Fuke was able to take Rutten down and lock in an armbar, forcing Rutten to spin a rope escape to avoid losing the match. However, Rutten was eventually able to get back on his feet and land a devastating knee strike to Fuke's liver, finishing the fight with a win. The match showcased Rutten's ability to adapt to adversity and capitalize on his striking prowess, even when facing a more experienced opponent with a grappling advantage. However, Bas's next fight would be up against one of the founders of Pancrase, a seasoned and well-respected fighter in Japan. In his third match in Pancrase, Rutten faced off against the founder of the organization, Masakatsu Funaki. Rutten was taken down and forced to close guard, and in a moment of frustration, he accidentally hit Funaki with a closed-fisted punch. When Rutten tried to apologize, Funaki capitalized and executed a toe hold, making Rutten tap out. This marked Bas's first loss in his career, and it was a wake-up call for Rutten, who now realized that he had to improve on his grappling game. However, the story between these two fighters was not over, as they would meet again just 3 years later, in a fight that would become one of the most legendary fights in Pancrase history. At the Pancrase 1996 anniversary show, Bas had his long-awaited rematch with Funaki, and at this point in time, Bas held the King of Pancrase title. Funaki nearly finished the match early with an ankle lock, but Rutten managed to escape and proceeded to fend off Funaki for the remainder of the fight. Funaki made use of the knee on stomach and mount positions to initiate leg lock attacks, but Rutten countered every time and eventually pushed Funaki away. However, in a moment of desperation, Funaki threw an illegal kick to Rutten while he was getting up. In response, Bas knocked Funaki down with a palm strike and then completely broke his nose with a second palm strike to Funaki. After this, the fight turned into a complete massacre, with Bas landing a lengthy, unanswered string of strikes until a knee to the face finally downed Funaki for the KO victory. Bas became a 3-time king of Pancrase with this victory. Rutten described the intense back-and-forth nature of the fight in an interview, recounting his determination to destroy Funaki after the Japanese fighter made a throat-slashing gesture before the fight. Rutten broke Funaki's cheekbone and nose in the fight, but afterwards, they were friends again. With today's MMA rules, these fights would never go on for this long, as after the first knockdown, the fight would most likely be waved off. That's what makes the fights in Pancrase more grueling than any other MMA organization. The second fight, between Rutten and Funaki, lasted nearly 18 minutes and is widely considered one of the best Pancrase fights ever due to its intense and dramatic nature. Despite coming back 3 years later to claim victory over one of the Pancrase founders, Bas had accomplished this feat 3 years prior in his fight against the other founder of Pancrase, Minoru Suzuki. In 1994, Bas Rutten faced the undefeated Minoru Suzuki. Rutten managed to knock Suzuki down with a body kick and defended well against his ground submission attempts. Slightly over 3 minutes into the fight, Rutten delivered a devastating knee strike to Suzuki's liver, resulting in a knockout victory. Later that year, Rutten would have his first fight against Jason DeLucia, an American mixed martial artist who he would end up facing 3 times in the span of just 2 years. In the first 2 matchups, Bas had emerged victorious by locking in submissions relatively quickly into the fights. In the first matchup, it was a guillotine choke, and in the second, it was a heel hook. Despite the defeats, DeLucia was eager for a rematch with Rutten, hoping to finally defeat the Dutch fighter. Critics saw this confusing, as Rutten seemed to dominate DeLucia in both previous matchups, but alas, they had a third fight in December of 1996. Despite Rutten's continued dominance over DeLucia, the fight was a controversial one, with DeLucia accusing Rutten of hitting him with closed fists, which was against the rules. The referee gave Bas a yellow card for the infraction, and later a red card, which meant that Rutten was down a couple of points. Letting the fight go to the judges was out of the question for Bas now. Rutten targeted DeLucia's liver with several hard shots, eventually causing a rupture that left DeLucia in intense pain and knocked him out. The knockout was painful and memorable, and it brought an unsurprising but satisfying end to Bas's trilogy with DeLucia. However, in terms of trilogy battles, Rutten's battles against Frank Shamrock was one of the best that has ever been witnessed in Pancrase Arena. In their first fight in 1994, Rutten lost a controversial decision to Shamrock, in which Rutten had locked in a rear naked choke under the ropes, but the referee broke it up without deducting a loss point from Frank. In their second fight in 1995, Rutten won a split decision, but the fight was again marred by controversy as the referee broke up 2 knee bars performed by Rutten next to the ropes. Their third and final fight took place on May 16, 1996, with both fighters holding titles. The two had a bit of rivalry, both determined to show that they were the better fighter. In the fight, Shamrock gained north-south positions several times, but was unable to submit Rutten. The two battled throughout the match, and at one point, even fell out of the ring in a failed takedown.
Whoa, fly out of the ring.
After getting back to their feet, Rutten knocked Shamrock down with an open-handed uppercut. And during a leg lock exchange, Shamrock taunted Rutten by sticking out his tongue, which led Rutten to hit him in the face with a closed fist punch, losing a point by red card as Shamrock expected. In the end, Rutten won the fight by TKO due to a cut above Shamrock's eye that he had been targeting throughout the fight. This win unified the King of Pancrase belt and put an end to one of the best trilogy fights to take place in Pancrase. However, just a few months before this epic battle, Bas had taken on the tough-as-nails Guy Mezger in a 20-minute thriller of a fight. Rutten's fight with Guy Mezger in March of 1996 was a highly anticipated matchup between 2 elite fighters. Mezger, a member of the famed Lions Den camp, was known for his grappling skills and was a formidable opponent for Rutten. In the fight, Rutten was able to dominate the stand-up exchanges with his striking, including his signature liver shots and palm strike. Mezger, unable to keep up with Rutten on the feet, attempted to take the fight to the ground to use his grappling skills. While Mezger was able to control Rutten on the ground, he was unable to score submission despite his best efforts. Rutten, on the other hand, was able to defend himself on the ground and capitalize on the stand-up exchanges to continue to inflict damage. During the end of the fight, Rutten and Mezger engaged in a leg lock exchange, during which Rutten was able to lock in a heel hook variation to submit Mezger, securing the win. It was a hard-fought victory for Rutten against a skilled and respected opponent in Mezger. Rutten's decision to focus on learning grappling techniques 3 years prior, following his first loss to Funaki, was paying off, and the combination of striking prowess and grappling techniques meant Bas was seemingly unstoppable in Pancrase. Following this fight, Bas went on to win his next 5 fights, up until the only draw in his career against Osami Shibuya. In their first fight in March of 1997, Bas faced off against Osami Shibuya in a match that ended in a draw. During the struggle, Rutten's sternum was broken, which hindered his performance and forced him to settle for the draw. Both fighters and the audience were disappointed that there was no clear winner, so a rematch was inevitable. The rematch between Rutten and Shibuya took place in September 1997. Rutten was determined to avenge his disappointing draw and came out strong from the beginning. He dominated Shibuya on the ground, eventually taking him down and securing a reverse arm triangle choke. From there, Rutten applied his signature Bas Rutten neck crank, a spinal lock that he developed himself, and submitted Shibuya in just 3 minutes.
I grab his leg, I grab the inside of my legs, and now I squeeze him like a pretzel, and he cannot breathe anymore. Listen to him. And there you go.
It was a decisive victory for Rutten and a testament to his grappling skills. At this point, Bas was on a 15-fight undefeated streak in Pancrase and looked ahead to the US to try his hand in the UFC. However, before he left, he was offered another fight against an up-and-coming Japanese fighter, Kengo Watanabe. Despite the risk of injury potentially affecting his move to the UFC, Bas took on the fight, convinced that he would not sustain any injuries and would instead extend his unbeaten streak. Rutten was correct, and the fight lasted just under 3 minutes, with Rutten dominating from the outset. Watanabe tried to take the fight to the ground, but Rutten defended well and kept the fight standing. Rutten then began landing a flurry of palm strikes, overwhelming Watanabe with his striking ability.
Okay, now I'm getting really bumped right here. Now watch this.
Eventually, one of Rutten's palm strikes knocked Watanabe out, resulting in a TKO victory for Rutten. With that being done, Bas was ready to head to the US and give the UFC a shot. Bas Rutten's fight against Tsuyoshi Kosaka at UFC 18 in 1999 was a pivotal moment in his career. It was his first fight in the UFC, and he was eager to prove himself on a big stage. The fight was a grueling back-and-forth battle. Rutten was able to showcase his striking skills, landing numerous punches and kicks throughout the fight. However, Kosaka was a tough opponent who was able to take the punishment and keep coming forward. Despite at times being on the back foot, in the end, Rutten emerged victorious by landing a vicious combo of punches on Kosaka, marking his first win in the UFC by TKO. This victory was significant for Rutten, as it established him as a legitimate contender in the promotion and set him on the path to becoming the UFC heavyweight champion. Rutten's fighting style was unique for his time, as he seamlessly blended striking and grappling to overwhelm his opponents. This was displayed exceptionally through his UFC title fight against Kevin Randleman. At UFC 20 in May 1999, Rutten was contending for the UFC heavyweight championship, while Randleman was a talented wrestler and a former NCAA Division I champion with his eyes set on gold as well. The fight was a back-and-forth battle, with Rutten showcasing his striking skills and Randleman using his wrestling to control the fight on the ground. In the second round, Randleman picked up Rutten and slammed him to the mat, causing Rutten to land awkwardly and injure his neck. Despite the injury, Rutten was able to continue and ultimately won the fight by unanimous decision, crowning him the UFC heavyweight champion. However, the win was controversial, as Randleman's side disagreed with the judge's call. Regardless, this fight was significant for Rutten's career because it showcases toughness and resilience in the face of adversity. Despite suffering a serious injury, Rutten was able to dig deep and come back to win the fight. After picking up the UFC heavyweight championship, Rutten then vacated the title due to an injury he sustained and also retired from fighting later that year. He was later inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, having only competed in 2 fights in the organization. As we've seen in this video, Bas Rutten is much more than just a funny self-defense teacher. He was one of the most dangerous fighters to ever compete and had the power to put absolutely anybody to sleep. And he showed the world he still had it when he put his fighting gloves back on 7 years later to take on Ruben Villarreal in the WFA King of the Streets event. The fight was a brief one and didn't last much longer than 3 minutes. Despite having been retired from professional fighting in the past 7 years, Rutten dominated the fight and eventually won by TKO with a flurry of leg kicks to his opponent. Once again, this proved Rutten's dominance in the fighting arena. There's no doubt that he's a legend in the sport, both for his dominance in the ring and for his contributions to its evolution. His unique approach to fighting, which blended striking, grappling, and submission techniques, set the stage for the modern era of MMA. Throughout his career, Rutten achieved numerous milestones and accomplished feats that few others could match. He held championship titles in multiple organizations, including Pancrase and the UFC, and he retired with a record of 28 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. But something that is often overlooked is the impact that he has had on the sport. Rutten's innovative techniques, such as his famous Bas Rutten liver shot, have become staples in the arsenal of every MMA fighter. His contributions to commentary and analysis have also made him a respected voice in the sport. And his work as a coach and mentor has helped countless athletes reach their full potential. Even though he's retired from competition, Rutten's impact on the sport of MMA will be felt for years to come. From his early days in Holland to his reign atop the world of mixed martial arts, he has left an indelible mark on the sport and its fans. So whether you're a longtime fan or just discovering the sport for the first time, one thing is clear. Bas Rutten is a true MMA icon, and his legacy will live on for generations to come. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. We've also got the next video queued up for you on Frank Mir, a man known for breaking arms in the octagon. And that's not a metaphor. We'll see you there.